The palace walls were already cracking, but nobody expected the loudest collapse to come from a woman allegedly borrowing ideas faster than royal staff could clean up the headlines. Because behind the polished smiles, staged kitchens, expensive jam jars, and carefully filtered California glamour, a brutal accusation started following Meghan Markle everywhere she went. Not just that she copied one idea, not two, but that almost every major business venture attached to her name somehow looked suspiciously familiar to something somebody else had already built first. And once people started noticing the pattern, they couldn't unsee it anymore. Suddenly, every launch, every product, every photo shoot, every podcast title started looking less like innovation and more like a celebrity speed run through other people's homework. And the deeper people dug, the uglier it got. The first crack came with the now infamous bookmark scandal. Yes, a bookmark. After walking away from royal life to supposedly build a billion-dollar empire, Meghan released an overpriced leather bookmark stamped with the words "fell asleep here." And almost immediately, people discovered the exact same phrase already existed on Etsy from a small independent seller charging less money. That alone was embarrassing enough. But then critics uncovered something even messier. The same British workshop hired to manufacture Meghan's version already sold nearly identical bookmarks themselves. Same phrase, same concept, same minimalist design. The only visible difference was the logo stamp and font choice. Suddenly, the internet exploded with accusations that Meghan hadn't just copied an idea, she may have copied the very company helping her produce it. And the backlash became vicious because people started asking the question nobody around her camp seemed prepared to answer. If the ideas are so original, why do they already exist everywhere else first? Then came the Vogue controversy. Meghan reportedly spent 7 months working behind the scenes on British Vogue's historic September issue. 7 months. An entire media machine promoted it as groundbreaking history-making brilliance. The first guest edited September issue in the magazine's century-long existence. But when the cover finally dropped, people immediately noticed how familiar it looked. Black and white portraits of fearless women described as trailblazing changemakers. Except critics quickly pointed out a striking resemblance to a previously published project called The Game Changers, a book Meghan herself had connections to years earlier. Even the wording reportedly looked nearly identical. Suddenly, the glamorous feminist victory lap turned into accusations of recycled branding dressed up as originality. And the silence from Meghan's team afterward only made the suspicion louder. But things became truly explosive once Meghan entered the lifestyle world, because that's when people stopped accusing her of copying isolated ideas and started accusing her of copying entire personalities. The Martha Stewart comparisons erupted almost instantly after With Love Meghan launched. Carefully curated kitchens, homemade jams, flower arrangements, hosting tips, soft lighting, California luxury aesthetics. It all looked eerily close to Martha Stewart's empire, except Martha built hers over decades while Meghan appeared to parachute into the genre with Netflix cameras already rolling. Critics mocked the staged atmosphere relentlessly. Viewers noticed the kitchen reportedly wasn't even hers. Guests acted like strangers, and audiences became especially brutal toward the rainbow fruit platter moment where Meghan proudly explained how arranging strawberries and blueberries by color could make mornings fun. Mothers online practically screamed at their screens. People juggling jobs, rent, exhaustion, and real parenting problems weren't exactly begging for instructions on constructing luxury fruit rainbows before school runs. The scene instantly became a meme because it perfectly symbolized what critics believed was Meghan's biggest problem: expensive performance pretending to be relatable authenticity. And then the podcast disaster happened. Meghan launched Confessions of a Female Founder like it was some bold, empowering original concept, except a young Irish entrepreneur named Katie already had a platform with the exact same title over a year earlier. Word for word. Critics exploded again because this time the optics looked even worse. Meghan, a globally famous duchess with Netflix deals and celebrity connections, was accused of stepping directly into the lane of a small independent creator without acknowledgement. And then came the humiliation nobody could spin away. The podcast collapsed in rankings so fast it reportedly dropped beneath Sleep Podcast, teaching listeners how to fall asleep. Imagine copying a title only to get defeated by bedtime audio. Even her children's book wasn't safe from controversy. The Bench was marketed as a heartfelt, emotional story inspired by Prince Harry and Archie. Meghan promoted it personally, narrating it online while introducing herself to children as Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. But soon after release, people pointed toward another earlier book titled The Boy on the Bench with an almost identical emotional premise focused on fathers and sons bonding around a bench setting. Similar themes, similar imagery, similar title structure. Critics tore into the overlap mercilessly. Worse still, the book reportedly ended up heavily discounted in bargain bins while internet mockery spiraled out of control. The royal reinvention that was supposed to establish Meghan as a thoughtful author instead became another entry on a growing list of wait, haven't we seen this before? And by this point, audiences started noticing something darker beneath the pattern. It wasn't just business ideas anymore, it was entire celebrity blueprints. People accused Meghan of copying Gwyneth Paltrow's Goop aesthetic almost frame for frame. Beige luxury tones, wellness branding, expensive lifestyle imagery, lemons in perfect kitchens, carefully curated aspirational living. The internet flooded with side-by-side comparisons. Critics claimed Meghan looked less like a creator and more like someone assembling celebrity identities from Pinterest mood boards. Even worse, despite all the promotion, With Love, Meghan reportedly failed to crack Netflix's top-performing shows. That hurt badly because the comparison to Goop only highlighted the difference between building an empire slowly over years and appearing to manufacture one overnight through branding alone. And just when people thought the copycat accusations couldn't get any worse, Pamela Anderson entered the conversation. Because viewers immediately noticed similarities between Pamela's Cooking with Love and Meghan's With Love, Meghan. Same warm gardening visuals, same wicker baskets, same intimate cooking style, same comforting domestic atmosphere. Critics started posting side-by-side trailer breakdowns within hours. Some even called it frame-by-frame inspiration. Suddenly, the whispers became impossible to ignore. Bookmark, Vogue, Martha Stewart, podcasts, children's books, Goop, cooking shows. Again and again, the same accusation kept circling back around Meghan Markle like a storm cloud refusing to move. And what makes this entire saga even more damaging is that the accusations didn't stop at internet gossip. They started bleeding directly into Meghan's public image, her business credibility, and even the way audiences reacted before her projects were released. That is the real disaster nobody in Montecito can fully control anymore. Because once people begin expecting imitation, they stop looking at your launches with excitement and start examining them like detectives searching for fingerprints. And every single new project Meghan touches now arrives under a cloud of suspicion before the public even presses play. Take the Emma's Kitchen comparisons. This one hit differently because it involved a woman who had quietly built her own audience for nearly a decade without royal titles, Netflix backing, or billion-dollar PR machinery. Emma Weymouth had already established the exact soft aristocratic cooking aesthetic years earlier: floral dresses, countryside elegance, heritage kitchens, bees, gardens, wholesome hosting energy. Then Meghan appeared with almost the same visual formula wrapped inside a glossy Netflix package. Critics immediately asked the uncomfortable question: was Meghan inspired, or was she carefully recreating something that already proved successful? Because audiences noticed how eerily similar the atmosphere felt, and once viewers actually watched the series, things got brutal fast. Reviews described it as exhausting, artificial, painfully staged, and emotionally hollow. The audience score reportedly collapsed to humiliating levels, and suddenly Meghan's domestic goddess reinvention started looking less like a triumph and more like a very expensive identity crisis unfolding in public. Then came the wine launch controversy, and honestly, this one made people raise their eyebrows harder than almost anything else. Because Cameron Diaz wasn't just another celebrity. She was reportedly Meghan's neighbor, friend, and fellow Montecito elite. Cameron had already built Aveline into a recognizable organic wine brand years earlier with distribution deals across major American retailers. The concept was already there: clean celebrity wine, wellness branding, California luxury image. And then Meghan suddenly stepped into the exact same lane with her own wine ambitions. Critics immediately accused her of stepping directly into her friend's territory. Even royal commentators began openly warning that Meghan had developed a reputation for attaching herself to ideas that already existed and simply placing her name on top of them. But what truly embarrassed critics was the aftermath. Reports emerged suggesting Netflix offices allegedly had boxes of unsold as ever products stacked around like forgotten promotional leftovers. Candles, jam, wine, lifestyle products. Even stories about defective candles without wicks started circulating online. And suddenly, Meghan's attempt to enter the luxury wine world turned into another public punchline. And maybe that's the biggest problem problem hiding underneath all of this chaos. Because every celebrity borrows inspiration. Every brand studies competitors. Hollywood survives on trends, reinventions, and recycled formulas. But Meghan's critics believe something else is happening here. They believe there's a deeper pattern. A pattern where she allegedly studies successful women. Martha Stewart, Gwyneth Paltrow, Pamela Anderson, Cameron Diaz, then rebuilds pieces of their public image into her own rebrand strategy. And the public backlash becomes even more vicious because Meghan's image was originally sold as revolutionary, authentic, independent, different from the monarchy, different from Hollywood, different from everyone. But if audiences stop believing the different part, the entire reinvention starts wobbling dangerously. And now there's another layer making this whole thing even darker. Because while Meghan fights accusations of copying ideas, the projects themselves reportedly keep struggling commercially. Podcasts disappear from charts. Shows receive brutal reviews. Products become internet memes. Critics tear apart authenticity. Viewers mock relatability. Even supporters sometimes sound exhausted defending her. That combination is lethal in celebrity branding because failure alone can recover. Controversy alone can recover. But controversy mixed with visible failure, that creates a narrative almost impossible to escape.